Hello and welcome, I'm your CodeMonkey, and here let's check out one asset that will greatly increase your odds of success. Now you're probably already aware of the term game feel or game juice or just nice feedback, meaning add tons of screen shake, lots of flashy things, punchy sound effects and much more. There's a bunch of really awesome talks on YouTube about this topic. I've linked them in the description, definitely watch those if you don't know about how to make your game feel awesome. So what this asset does is exactly that. It's a collection of tools and effects to take your game from boring to awesome. Just by looking at some simple examples, you can see the huge difference it makes between the basic boring game and the one with awesome feedback. Adding a bunch of excellent game feel to your game will massively increase your chance of success, and this asset helps you do that. So this video is split in two parts. First, let's look at some of the demos to see what the asset can do and how they work. Then after that, I'll do a step-by-step guide on how to start using it and add it to your own games. There's timestamps in the video if you want to look ahead. Check out the entire asset review playlist where I highlight great assets to help you make your games awesome. Also, this video is sponsored by Unity, which is currently running the New Year sale on the Unity Asset Store. This sale has tons of assets that have never been discounted previously, so if there's something that came out recently, then chances are it's discounted for the very first time on this sale. There's over 8,000 assets heavily discounted, everything from tools to models, animations, and tons of effects. Most of the assets I've covered in my asset review series are discounted. I also made a video and a list covering some of the best highlights. And on top of that, this sale also has a special coupon if the total is above $150. However, I have an even better coupon. You can use the coupon CodeMonkeyNY22, and instead of 5% off, you get a bonus 10% off. The sale is running until the 11th of January, so check it out with the link in the description. And this asset is also discounted as part of the sale, so if you like what you see in this video, go ahead and pick it up before the discount ends. And if you're watching this after the sale is over, then you can instead use the coupon CodeMonkey10 to get 10% off your order. Okay, so feel. This asset really helps you in making your games feel awesome. It is very well built, everything is very easy to use, you have tons of graphs to visually play with, tons of options for how to interpolate your values, lots of timing options, and it's super simple to trigger the effects. Also, I should mention that the effects part is really just one part of this asset. This is actually three assets in one. So you have the Feedbacks, which is the system to handle all of those effects. Then you also have Nice Vibrations. This one is a tool for helping you add haptic feedback to your mobile games. And finally, Tools. This one is a collection of various helpful tools. There's one to manage sound, create sequences of actions, make a simple state machine, debug menu, visually plot your tweens, and more. So this asset really is those three in one. So here I've got my project and I imported the asset. Now in terms of documentation, the asset is great. You can see there's a huge amount of separate demos, all of them covering all kinds of use cases. And the documentation on the website is also excellent. The website is very clean with a nice summary of each demo and exactly what they showcase. So for example, here's a quick video tutorial on how to install Field, either in video or a text tutorial. Then here's the demo page, which showcases all of the various demos included in the asset. So this website really is really awesome. Another thing is over here, you've got a page for recipes. So these are some super quick tutorials that teach you how to implement some specific scenario. For example, how to set up Scene Machine Camera Shake. And there you go, you've got some very simple instructions. So just import Feel, import Scene Machine, add the Impulse Listener extension, create a Feedbacks object, assign a Scene Machine Impulse Feedback, and so on. So lots of mini tutorials on how to do all kinds of things. Then you've got a getting started, a bunch of concepts, a list of all of the effects, and so on. So the website is really awesome and some excellent documentation. So back in Unity, let's check out some of the demos. Also, one important thing on the render pipelines. Now, the asset works on all of the render pipelines. For most of it, it really doesn't matter. For example, making the screen shake, that's not really related to any render pipeline. So the only time when it matters is when animating the post-processing effects. Each render pipeline has its own post-processing stack, so they require different components. But in terms of usability, it's really all the same as working with any other property. So speaking of that, let's start with the URP demo. It's a really nice bowling demo. So the ball is constantly looking left and right, and as soon as I hit space, yep, there goes the ball, it's thrown forward, hits the pins with all kinds of really nice effects, and then a really nice reset. There's also some really nice sound effects, so as soon as I press, and yep, there you go, looks really nice, really satisfying. However, if I pause the game and I look into the various feedback components, so I go here and I'm just going to disable all of these effects. So I disable them all, and now if we test, and yep, there you go, it looks much more boring. And the reset also instant, so all of it looking much more boring. So compare that with the version with all of the effects added, and yep, look at that, really awesome. So just with this, you can see the huge difference that adding all of these effects makes. Without them, it really looks like an amateur game. There's nothing flashy, no hit feedback, no sounds, the UI is boring, and reset happens instantly. But with all the effects, it looks like a proper polished professional game. Then here on the left side, there's also a menu where you can click to see each effect in action. Now this one is the URP demo, so this one shows specifically the things that are exclusive to URP, which are really just the volume post-processing effects. So for example, you click on it and you see how it increases and decreases bloom, so really nice. Then the channel mixer, all of it changing really nice and smooth, so all of it interpolated instead of being massively instantly. And of course, you can also inspect how all of this is working. So on this demo, you can go inside the canvas, go inside the scroll rect, and over here you've got all of the various ones. So for example, on bloom, you can see inside there's a feedbacks object. And then here you can see it has the feedbacks component, and it's got a bloom URP. And then down here you see the curve, how it starts from 0, increases and decreases. So you see how easy it works, but we'll see the getting started guide in a bit. Now this is just one of the demos, so let's see some other ones. For example, here is a very basic snake demo. So it's really just a snake game, just rotating around, trying to grab all of these balls, all of these food. So it's really very simple. It's really just a bunch of squares, a bunch of spheres, but with all of these effects, you can see how it looks really, really nice and awesome. Look at that. Then over here, the bounce demo. Now this one has a scene without feedbacks. So I press on space and there you go. The character jumps up and down, really very boring. And now enable all the effects. And now with the jump, look at that, really awesome, much more impactful. Then here is the Cards UI demo. Features lots of satisfying movement, some bounces, some post-processing visual effects, all of them looking really nice, really satisfying. This one shows a progress bar, so how you can make even just a basic UI, make it much more polished, much more impactful. And this one, the feedbacks demo, this one shows tons of individual effects. So as you can see, this asset can modify pretty much everything. So you can do some animations, you can do some destruction, enable or disable some behavior, instantiate a bunch of objects, change the camera field of view, do a bunch of camera shake, then again play around all of the post-processing. You can use it to animate textures in texture scale. You can freeze frame, do a time modifier, so enable some slow motion, move, rotate a transform, and so on and so on. There's even tons of them for floating UI text, as well as a bunch with TextMesh Pro. There's also some audio, as well as even a really nice debug log. So here's the console looking really nice. And all of this, everything that you see here, everything you can modify, you can do it with all kinds of triggers and all kinds of curves to get it triggered exactly as you want it and behave exactly as you intended. Okay, so now that we've seen the official documentation and demos, let's go to the second part of this video and learn how to apply it to our game. So here is my demo. I've got my character and a zombie target. So let's pretend this game is sort of like an XCOM game, so a turn-based tactical game. So I'm controlling this character, and on my next turn, I decide to take the action of shooting the zombie. So I do the action, and there you go, shoot the zombie, and the zombie flies. So it's a pretty simple demo. So I just take my action and I shoot, and there you go, it falls down. So right now it feels very boring. So let's use this asset to spice things up. Essentially, I prepared some things, like some cameras and some particles, and we're going to use Feel to trigger all of the actions and play around the values. Here is the script that I'm using on this demo. So it's very simple, really just on update, checking for the spacebar input, and if so, then we spawn a bullet, so really just instantiating the prefab. And then for the zombie hit, really just disabling the animator so the ragdoll falls down and adding some explosion. So all of it pretty simple. And like this, the demo is pretty boring. You really just press a button and the zombie is shot instantly. So one of the first effects that I want to add is this particle system. Essentially, I want to add some anticipation for this action, so I want these particles to build up before the weapon actually fires. So let's do that. Let's begin by making an empty game object. Let's name it just feedbacks. And then here, first of all, reset the transform, and let's add a component. Then you can add a search or go up here into more mountains. Then go into feedbacks, and let's add the feedbacks. Okay, so now we've got a really nice button here to add any kind of feedback. Now the first one we want is to have the particles start playing. So let's add a feedback. Let's go down here into particles and let's enable of type particles play. Just like it says on this note, we'll simply play the specified particle system. Then here we've got the label, so we can change the text that appears in there. So we can make this a bit more specific. So let's say shoot particles play. Then down here for the mode, we want to set the particles to start playing when it reaches this feedback. And then just assign a particle system, so just drag the reference. Okay, so that's it. Just like this, it's already enough to trigger the particles, so we can test this. The game is currently playing, and now for testing, the component has some super useful testing buttons. So these buttons down here apply to all feedback, so they run through the entire feedback list, or each individual feedback also has a play or stop button. So for example, let's test out Justice Shoot Particles, hit on play, and yep, there you go, the particle system does indeed start playing. Okay, great. Now in this demo, I also set up 2 virtual action cameras. So one of them is right behind the player, and then there's another one right in front of the zombie. So let's say we want to use these along with our actions. Now there are 2 ways we can do that. We can go into our MM feedbacks, go into add a feedback, and then here under camera we can add a scene machine transition, so we could use this effect. This one requires a bit of setup, or we can just take the simpler approach and really just enable or disable these game objects. So the action camera always has a higher priority, so as soon as I enable, it's going to switch to this one, disable, and go back into normal. Okay, so here let's add new feedback. Let's go into our game object, and we're going to make it of type set active. Then let's drag this reference, so the action camera 1. So activate action camera 1. And now these are the states, and on play is when we actually reach this feedback effect. So when we play, when we reach this one, we want to enable that one. So let's go, state on play, we're going to set it to active. Okay, so let's test and see if this activates the second camera. So the game is currently playing, and press on this button, and there you go, it does activate that camera. Okay, great. Now for the next effect, let's add a growing screen shake while the player is charging up the shot. So for screen shake, let's add a new feedback, and this time we're going to go into camera, and we're going to add it of type scene machine impulse. And just like it says here on the note, this lets you trigger a scene machine impulse event, which also means you need a scene machine impulse listener on the camera. So let's go into the virtual camera, and down here there's a button to add an extension. So here let's add a scene machine impulse listener. Then for the setup, we can leave it all on defaults. Just make sure to attach it to all the cameras that you're using. So for me, I'm going to add it to these 2. Now back on the feedback, let's set this up. So for the impulse channel, yeah, we left everything on default. Okay, that's good. For the raw signal, we can use one of the presets. So let's use the 6E shake. Then you can play around the amplitude and frequency. But the most important one is over here playing around with the attack. So this is the start portion of the shake. And we want to increase in intensity. So this area right here, this one is an animation curve. So if you click on it, yep, it shows you a really nice animation curve. So we want to slowly increase the intensity, so we can go either with a flat or maybe this one. And for the time, let's say we want to increase it over 3 seconds. And that's all we need, so let's put the sustain and decay both on 0. And the last thing that we need is down here on the velocity. So this is the intensity, so essentially the strength of the screen shake. Let's not put it by too much, so maybe just 0.5 on all of them. Okay, so let's test this feedback. So the game is playing, and as I hit on play, and yep, there you go, there's a slight shake and slowly increasing. So maybe we can increase the intensity by a little bit. And yep, it does start to shake a bit better. Okay, great. So far we have some particles, then we activate the action camera, then we start shaking. Now for the next one, let's trigger an event to fire the actual bullet, but we want to do that after the charge up is completed. So for that, let's add a new feedback, and for this one we're going to go into events. And then over here you see a bunch of standard Unity events. So these are triggered at various stages. So a play event, that's when the feedback reaches this event. There's a stop event in case you stop this one. The initialization, which happens in the beginning. So there you go, over here you've got the settings. And then the reset when the whole thing resets. So in this case, we want to trigger something when we get to this particular feedback. So let's do it on play. And really this one is a normal Unity event. So just click on plus, then we drag the script. So let's drag that one. Then go into the asset review field. This is the script that I'm using. In this case, I want to call the spawn bullet function. Okay, so that's pretty much it. But we don't want this event to be triggered right on start. So on timing, we have this nice section here. There's tons of options, and the most important one is over here, the initial delay. In this case, we want to shoot the bullet after 3 seconds, so let's just put it 3 right here. Also note how here on the feedback list on the right side, you can see how long until these events are activated. Now, scene machine impulse is activated on 0, lasts for 3 seconds, so that's why it goes there. And the events, that one has a delay of 3 seconds, and then it's instant. Okay, so let's test like this. Okay, the game is playing, so let's test. But let's test all of the feedbacks instead of just one by one. So over here, I've got a second inspector open, and I'm going to trigger the play button. So let's just move it to the side, press the button, and there you go. The camera goes in, the particle starts flying, and after 3 seconds, yep, we've got the bullet. All right, great. So you saw how the camera zoomed in, it started shaking, the particle started playing, then it shakes some more. When the weapon is charged, and the shot is fired. So with what we have here, you can already see just how easy it is to set up all of these actions and all of this timing. Now let's make some more. Let's add a more intense shake when we shoot. So let's do the same thing we did previously. So also another Sin Machine Impulse. So let's add another one. The only difference is this one, no attack time. Let's keep some sustain and then decay. And for decay, let's do kind of the reverse of this curve. So it starts off high and goes down slow. Then also on the velocity, we want this one to be quite a bit more intense. Then we also want to trigger the zombie getting shot. So that's another event. So let's add a new event. And up here on the play events, let's drag the script and call the function. Okay, just zombie hit. Also don't forget the timing. So for the Sin Machine Impulse, the really nice shake, let's put it after 3 seconds. So as soon as the bullet fires, it fires that one. Then for the zombie getting hit, let's put a bit more, so maybe 3.05. And before that, let's also activate the second camera. So just do the exact same thing. Go into Game Object, set Active. Let's drag the Action Camera 2, and we're going to set it to Active. Okay, so that's a bunch more effects. Now it would also be really cool to have a slow motion effect. So let's do that. Let's add a new feedback. Let's go down here into time and let's add a timescale modifier. And this one, just like it says on the note here, this one triggers a timescale event, but we need an object with a time manager. So let's do that. Just create a new empty game object. And then we add a component. Once again, go into more mountains and let's add a time manager. Another nice effect would be to add some chromatic aberration. So let's add a new feedback. And that one is a post-processing effect. So let's go into this one. And now here I'm working in URP, so that's what we're going to use. Let's add a chromatic aberration URP. And again, make sure to read the note. So as you can see, the volume component needs to also have this component. So on the object where you have the volume component, just go ahead and attach this component as well. Then here in the settings, you've got the intensity. So once again, this is an animation curve, so you can play around the shape with the intensity and so on. Okay, so I just added some more effects, a bloom, lens distortion, and so on. So now I'd like to test all of them at once, but so far we've been testing them by clicking on the editor button. That's obviously not ideal, so now it's time to trigger all of this through code, which is really easy. Over here is my script with my very simple logic. All we really need is first the using statement. So using, this one is inside more mountains, then inside feedbacks. And then let's add a serialized field. For the type is of type feedbacks, there's an S. So there are 2 classes, make sure you put the one on the S. And just feedbacks. Then down here, instead of calling these functions manually, these are going to be called by the feedbacks. So we just go here and we call play feedbacks. And that's it, very simple. So here in the editor, we really just need to assign that reference and we can test. Okay, so here I am, and now instead of using the debug button, I'm going to press on space to take my action. So I take my action. And there you go, the camera changes, zooms in, starts playing, starts shaking, and shoots a zombie. Everything nice slow motion, nice lens distortion, all of that looking really awesome. So here it is again with the camera, the zoom, the shake, the particles, then the bullet is fired, then the zombie, the slow motion, and all of those really nice effects. So compare this one with the version without any of these effects, and you can see a huge difference. In just a few minutes, we turned a boring demo into something pretty awesome. Also, one quick note here, in this demo I built all the logic of these effects in a single feedbacks component, so this is one approach, but like you saw in the official demos, a possibly better approach is to actually separate them. So if this was a real game, I would now refactor this logic just to separate the shot feedbacks from the zombie dead feedbacks. To do that, really you just make another object with the effects for the second part, then on the first one you would add an event to trigger the second one, and so on. Basically, the more separate you keep the logic, the easier it is to understand how it all works, and you end up with fewer timing dependencies. Alright, so that's Feel. It's a great asset to very easily add tons of polish to your game. Polish is really what separates good games from great games, so definitely spend some time polishing all of your actions. And with this asset, it really makes that process very simple. You can see how quickly I turned the demo scene going from boring to awesome. And like I said, this asset is actually 3-in-1. I just covered the feedbacks part. But if you're working on mobile, this one also includes the Nice Vibrations haptics package, and it also has tons of useful tools. So all of that is included in this one asset. So based on how much polish affects the level of success that you can find with your games, I can highly recommend this asset. And don't forget to check out Unity's New Year sale. If you like this asset, then this is the best time to get it. And beyond that, check out all of the other assets on sale, lots of brand new ones receiving their very first discount. And if you're watching this after the sale is over, you can instead use the coupon code Monkey10 to get 10% off your order. I hope you find this asset useful in your own projects. Check out the full asset review playlist for some more awesome assets. Let me know in the comments any suggestions for other assets I should review. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.